Okay, we'll call the meeting of the Board of Education to order for May 26, 2011. We will start. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda for this evening?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any members of the public that would like to speak to the Board of Education this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We'll move on to reports and recognition. The board chair does not have a report tonight, so I will hand it over to the superintendent.
Thank you and good evening. I have two items. The first has to do with transitions, and although this is an item that there's been a lot of information in the newspapers about it, I wanted to take a moment to say a few words about the administrative transition that will be occurring on July 1st. First, I'd like to publicly acknowledge the work that's been done by Assistant Superintendent Arlene Gottesman. She has decided to retire at the end, as you know, of 2011, and this marks the end of her 36th year in education, during which time she served as a teacher, a counselor, a principal, curriculum coordinator, and assistant superintendent. During her career, as many of you know, she's worked in 4 school districts in Norwalk, Milford, Newtown, and for the past 4 years here in Wilton. And throughout her career, I think she's earned the respect of those she's worked with. Those who have worked with her have been impressed, as you know, and you've seen examples of it, with her commitment to young people and improvement of learning. And the fact she's worked really enthusiastically with board members, with teachers, administrators, parents, and students during her time here. I think it's important to note that during her 4 years, she has played a major role in the implementation of our strategic plan. She did a yeoman's duty in working with the principals and instructional leaders on the Tri-State Consortium Language Arts, K-12 Language Arts Review, and she's worked hard on our professional development programs. We wish her all the best as she enters a new chapter in her life. I'd like to say a few words about people who are with us and who are going to be assuming some new positions who are here tonight. As you know, Tim, I'm very excited, and I think we're all excited about Tim assuming the position of Assistant Superintendent of Instruction. Tim has had, despite his youthful countenance, 31 years of experience at all 3 levels. He has worked at Cider Mill School. He had a dark period in his career in the Darien Public Schools for 7 years, where he worked at both the elementary and middle schools in Darien. We were able to bring him back to Wilton, and he worked at Middlebrook School and then has been at the high school as both an associate principal and then for the past 7 years as principal. Those who, and the board has seen a great deal of Tim in each year. I think that we would all agree he has great instructional skills. He's very strong in this area, and that's certainly, we're blessed with 4 principals who all share that level of skill, and that's very important. I think he's very systemic in his thinking. He is one I know that I think he enjoys a very good rapport with all constituents in the district, certainly with his colleagues in each of the schools. I think he is the first one, as you've heard him say, to give credit when we look at some of the high school achievements to the work that's done at Miller Driscoll and at Cider Mill and at Middlebrook and how it builds as a system. I think I have found him, and you have seen examples, I think he's a very effective presenter, and he's a great writer. And I think what's important here is that I think he will be available, as Debbie was for him when he made that transition, to be a great mentor for Bob in his new position and for Maria. Since he's held both of those positions, he has a really, I think, healthy and knowledgeable view of that. So I'm really pleased that Tim will be assuming this position, and I'm really looking forward to continuing our work at a district level with him. Bob, Robert O'Donnell, as you know, will be acting principal at the high school. Bob has had 24 years experience in education, having served in both public and independent schools in Connecticut, Minnesota, and even had a stint in Salzburg, Austria, which I know is a very special place for him. He's a world language teacher, which is nice because when I'm observing a classroom and in an advanced language, and after the roll is taken, I find and everything is in the language, the focus language. I can ask Bob a little bit about some of the pedagogy that he and I have done some observations together. He was a world language teacher for 12 years, went on to serve as department chair, a dean of students, and an assistant principal before he came to us in 2004. So we started at the same time. Bob is highly regarded by the staff and has really an outstanding rapport with students and parents. He really is very thoughtful in his supervision and evaluation of instruction, and has extensive experience with extracurricular activities and athletics, having coached for a certain point of his career. So we're really pleased, Bob. I know we're going to have some time with the board informally. We're working on scheduling that, as you know. Finally, I'd like to, and certainly not least, but like to acknowledge Maria Coleman, who's here tonight, sitting next to Bob, who will assume the position of acting associate principal. And Maria is an extraordinary story and a different story. After a very highly successful career for 9 years as a teacher and as an instructional leader at Miller Driscoll School, Maria joined the high school administrative team in 2008 as an assistant principal. So she was one, we had identified her early on, as I remember a wonderful Let's Talk session that I had, Debbie and I had with Maria and some other math teachers, and I spoke to the principal afterwards, and I said, this person has really got a great deal of leadership potential, and she's someone that we really want to keep in the system as a leader. By all accounts, and Tim came to me and said, I've got a thought when we had that opening that we have somebody in the system who could be very good. And Maria interviewed against some others and earned the job and made a seamless transition to the high school. And very quickly, it was the high school staff literally within the first month, I think, Tim, is that accurate? We're coming to you saying how what an extraordinary transition Maria had made. She's a great writer. She's a very great, has great analytical skills. She's been tried and true in dealing with difficult student discipline situations and working through all that those entail. And she's, as I said, a very quick study. So we're really pleased that she's going to be moving into the associate principal's chair on an acting basis. I have no doubt that the intelligence, the skill, the commitment of these outstanding professional educators will not only ensure continuity in our schools, but will really help us continue with some of the array of emerging and ongoing improvements that we're trying to make in the system. So we're so pleased, and I didn't want to let the night go by without congratulating them publicly and welcoming to new jobs. And they have a lot on their plates as they're going to be making this transition, but we know they're up to it. So congratulations, and we're so pleased. So,
Thank you.
last thing I had, just very quickly, the Middlebrook School, I learned from Julia that there's a national competition. It's a National Language Arts League that offers an opportunity for students to apply their knowledge for an audience outside the building, for gifted students to challenge themselves, and for staff to check on how our curriculum measures up to that of school districts around the nation. I believe there are about 75 different school systems that participate around the nation in this competition. And Julie was pleased to report that our 8th grade placed first of all of the 8th grades in this national competition, And Middlebrook, grade 7, placed second among all the 75 systems who had competed in that. So that was, I thought you'd want to hear that.
Congratulations.
It's really impressive. Congratulations to the language arts staff and the Middlebrook people.
Very good.
And to Cider Mailman, too.
Okay, thank you very much. Committee reports. Are there any this evening? All right. We'll move on to continuing education.
In Arlene's absence, I'd like to introduce Dolores Cupariello. She's been the coordinator of our continuing education and the before and after school children's programs for the past 3 years, and she's going to give the board an update on status for programs this year.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, and good evening. It is a pleasure to be here tonight. And I have with me Emily Dowden, our Supervisor of Children's Programs, and together we'll present our year in review. Within our department, within any given year, 3 goals remain constant. The first goal is to provide quality programs, current information. The second goal is to provide a safe environment. And the third goal is to cover costs. We added 2 goals to the 2010-11 school year. We decided what was important to us was to increase communications across the board within all of our programs. And the other goal was to focus on, and we've been doing this for the last 2 years, to re-energize our after-school extended day programs. When we talk about communication, and communication really is always the issue, we talk about the frequency and the and targeting that communication. Where is it going? So what we did in our extended day program was we put together an electronic bi-monthly newsletter, like our Kinder Kids News, and we increased our electronic communication online to the parents. We still have that personal touch, but we needed to get some information to them more frequently. These are examples of our Kinder Kids News, real content, real people, real kids. And it was a tangible that these families wanted to have. We targeted our communication this year. So we did some broad-based communication over the last couple of years through our website, but we also target our communication. So what we did with our data that we collected from our website is we looked at our market segments and decided to target this information. Let people know about course information and registration periods and new courses that come out. And we saw that certain market sectors took certain classes, so we let them know new classes that were coming out and when they would come out. In addition to that, we rolled out an email marketing plan for our adult ed and our student enrichment. And it was like a 4-6-step program that we would do at the onset of registration and at the end of that registration period. And the other thing we did was we increased our presence and our visibility through Edline, our new district website. When we talk about recharging this after-school childcare program, we were looking at a few things. And one thing is something we say in our department is we empowered the playtime. And what we did there was we brought in, on a part-time basis, a young person, and this person guides the recess. It's a part-time, it's a person comes in 3 times a week and works with our children during free time, but this person guides the playtime and leads it. We asked our enrichment instructors for some give back gratis. So we had our Zumba instructor come in a couple of times, our tennis people, our running club people, and instruct our children. And it was all give back. We asked, and they were happy to do it. And we purchased a Wii sports and dance program for that program to be competitive with other programs. Now, our future focus always remains the same, really, and it is on communication and technology, really. So in terms of communication, we're thinking about and talking about becoming more aware and present through social media. So we're talking about a Facebook page or a blog for our students, for the families of those students in enrichment and in extended day programs. We're working with the administration at specific schools and the director of technology in bringing in computers for extended day programs, again, to remain competitive. And the third thing is to maximize our return on this big investment and expense. We're going to use this piece of real estate in this brochure to advertise our children's programs, in particular our extended day programs. When I say extended day programs, what I mean is the child care programs. We had a lot of new and successful programs this year. Registrations in the children's programs, this is the enrichment and activities, they were up about 40% this year. I have to credit a lot of that to Emily Dowden's work on looking into value programs for families. And what we did with the website is we brought up to date and enhanced a lot of the content and brought in a lot of visuals. And a lot of these visuals, we went right into the classrooms and took pictures and put them on the website. So we really enhanced that the website, and we brought in a lot of good offerings. And I'm going to just turn it over to Emily, and she's going to talk about those offerings.
I'll just share with you some new programs as well as expanding existing programs that we've had over the years. We brought in tennis this year, indoor to Miller Driscoll. We offer programs in fall, winter, and spring sessions, and it ran for 2 of the sessions. Very popular. It filled both sessions. We also offered a yoga program to pre-K. It was our first endeavor to offer programs to pre-K, and they're quite flexible little souls. Love the down dog and swimming. It was really a lot of fun. So had one parent said, please, would you look into bringing it to Cider Mill next year? So that's what we're hoping to do. Cider Mill, Zumba, Running Club, Top Talk 2, which is an extension of Top Talk 1, another really successful program. So brought a Top Talk 2 program, tennis, and French. And at Middlebrook, we offered Zumba, Top Talk, and a high-quality craft class. At the high school this year, we offered a Tumbling for Cheerleaders program, which was an extension of our girls' gymnastics program. We also expanded existing programs to more grade levels. Engineering Fundamentals, which is a Lego building program at Cider Mill, was brought to Miller Driscoll as well as summer of last year and now this year. Filled to capacity, both sessions, winter and spring. Golf was brought to Miller Driscoll. Very successful. We brought it to Cider Mill this year. And crafts, jewelry, and art was at Cider Mill for several years, and we brought it to Miller Driscoll. Very, very popular there as well. Future, with these new programs, since they're so popular, we're hoping to expand them as well for next year. Running Club at Cider Mill, again, filled to capacity both the fall and the spring, so we're hoping to bring it to Middlebrook next year. Another program is Moving Meditation for our Middlebrook students. I hope they'll enjoy that. Spanish at Cider Mill, and again, yoga at Cider Mill.
Okay, and to close, the top 10 adult education classes this year. What are you waiting for? Zumba leads the list again. Here's running. Okay, pie making with Michelle. Believe it or not, tarot reading.
That's number 8. Are you going reverse order?
Who would have thought it?
Yeah, are you moving up?
You're moving down, right? From 1 down?
1 down.
Oh, okay.
Tennis, always popular. Okay. We're tech heavy in this program, our adult ed program. So the leading tech classes, QuickBooks Excel, Facebook and blogging, and any small electronic device class leads to the list. Okay. Digital imaging came back. Ceramics is popular. And let's see, did I miss anything? No, I think that's it. Those are our top 10 adult education classes. We are continuing to bring in new, savvy, current classes for next semester, and we're working on classes that are like this. Screen engine optimization classes, or a class in that, email marketing, a wine and artisanal chocolate class that I can tell you right now is going to be a win-win. And
I think we're going to have to
Bring that to the board.
See me at the
Board.
That's right.
We have some programs going on in the restaurants in some of our, in the town, in a couple of our restaurants in town here. And so we're going to open this up for questions right now.
Dolores. Emily, please come up to the table. Anyone wish to kick it off?
Sure. Wonderful. Absolutely fantastic to see all that. How many different students participate? Do you keep track on that?
What do you mean by different students?
Discrete individuals.
Oh, with the well, here's how the registrations go within, or the student population goes within the website. It's really on an email basis. So when we look at the data, we're really looking at individual email addresses. So if you sign your child up at work and you have one email address and then you go home and sign them up for something else, it's looking at the data as two separate people.
Will there be a way potentially in the future that you can see whether Tommy Jones is how many different programs Tommy Jones is participating in?
Yes.
We have to do it manually now, where we go into the individual orders. But actually, we were looking into adding that module to our website, where it will come up as a report on a particular person.
And then, do you have any idea, on average, how many programs each individual student may participate in or take over the course of a year? So again, Tommy Jones, on average, does he take one class, two classes?
We have students who take 4 classes in a session, before school, after school.
What's the age group of the...
K through 5
That we
would be
take
the
4?
highest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
K through 2 is our highest.
Right.
I would say. And then 3 through 5.
Yes.
Yeah, but we could have a child who takes chess and engineering fundamentals. As
Right.
many as 3, I would say 3 through 5.
Okay.
Really, you have to go in and look then individually at those orders. Some people we know because they take so many classes that we know the names.
We do have a lot of repeat.
And then, on average, how much does a class cost?
Talking about children?
Children? What would you say on average?
I would say it varies anywhere between, what's the lowest?
150.
100 for the running club, a 6-session
that's
class.
true.
So what we try to do is price it sometimes by the class. So I think the pricing goes mostly around $15 a class, give or take a little bit. It also depends heavily on what the instructor is requesting for a fee.
Gotcha.
And there's been a lot of negotiation the last 2 years.
And we've offered classes for 6 weeks this time because we wanted to give them a variety. If they didn't want to commit to an 8-week class, we tried a 6-week class, and those are popular.
Right. I think another thing we looked at the last 2 years because of the economy is we did something like a Starbucks. And what we did is we resized things and we repriced them because we had to. So in order to sell the class and to make it affordable, if it wasn't affordable at 8 weeks or they thought it was too pricey, something
Cider
like
clay.
something
Cider
like
clay.
a clay class can be very expensive. So what we did was, we resized it and repriced it and put it back out there again. So we had to do a lot of that.
Thank you very much.
I think that's what has impressed me most in reading your report. You have been very responsive to your clientele and what's happening with the economy, and if something's not working, you try to rework it. If it's still not working, you cut back like you were in the summer programs because there's a lot of competition.
Yes.
And the driver's ed is phenomenal. I mean, that there is clearly a need there that's being met by that program.
Good, good. Well, I mean, we try really because we have a great student body. I mean, we've got a great market out there. We've got a great town. Now, with the driver's ed, I think the reason that is popular is because there's a lot of good communication between that top driver and our office. I mean, you would
Absolutely.
say so. And you know what? Then I'm going to talk about another company. We look at a company like McDonald's, which offers quality, current programs, and we say the same thing. They are current. They stay on it, and they stay with the market, and that's what we do.
Right.
And we too have children, and we're in families, and we're in this economy all together.
When you capture the children for the early classes, do you also capture the adults? And do they stick with continuing education as they age?
That's a good question. Well, I don't know. I haven't been in this business that
No,
long.
that's feedback.
But, let's talk about the early morning.
Right.
The early morning. You want to talk about that?
Well, they're really popular. We have a lot of early risers. So I see kids that continue with those classes, the morning classes.
Morning classes are popular because the kids are up early. And so, and it's nice, the parent drops them off.
I know, that's
and they're
a really
picked
nice
up
feature.
at the car. So that's a
Right.
nice feature.
Our instructor meets them outside.
So really, your question is, I guess, what kind of student comes back to continuing education?
Well, I'm not only thinking about the student, I'm thinking about the parent, because the parent has a good experience for their children, then they're going to come back and start taking Zumba and everything else. And so you really want to play to that group.
Well, we are playing to that group because we feel we have to put in the pipeline a lot of younger people, because that demographic will open the email, will open a PDF online, will open the link.
Yeah.
So we have to we have to retain our good customers. And we have to get back those customers that are similar to that. In addition to that, we have to bring in those young people to move them along, bridge them to the next level. Here's a funny story. I thought it was funny. Now, I'm in the office, and my ballroom dance class is falling apart. A woman called my husband. He can't do it. My husband is out of town. So Emily.
They don't want to dance. You dress them up and they won't dance.
What's her husband? So now I'm on the phone, and Emily hears me, and I have Emily in charge of the programs, and I have Sue, who's not with us tonight. She has an IT background and a guidance counseling background. So they're both very with it, and Emily whispers over to me, and she says, "Why don't you tell her about eHarmony?" So it's too late, I think. But you see, there's a generation there.
Might be a new course.
Yeah, might be a new course. That's right. Very good.
That's really hard. Your husband won't dance, you'll find another time.
I know.
But you see, so you have
Leading the way to new tort liability.
So you have
The
one
wheels are
generation
turning.
thinking one way and another generation thinking another. But we see that a lot. We see that all the time.
You talked about in the adult education, you talked about a majority coming from Wilton.
Yes, 80% of the
It
registrations
is 80%.
come. Yes,
okay,
it
I was
is.
gonna say that. And the others, so it's just a smattering of individual communities.
Yes, I think following the Wiltonians really would be Norwalk. We distribute to 2 zip codes there, and then Ridgefield. Those are the top 3 towns. But 80% of the registrations do come from Ridgefield. Wilton.
And is there, for those who come from out of town, is there a difference in the courses that they select vis-a-vis the courses Wilton
No.
residents?
Do we charge you more?
We do. We do have an out-of-town fee, which I didn't
Smart
drop.
Chris.
I had been asked to drop it by customers, but I did not drop that.
Are there similar programs? Well, I guess there aren't similar programs in Norwalk or Ridgefield, but anything around here that is similar to what
I would
you're
say-
Oh, I get a Ridgefield. I get a
Ridgefield.
Ridgefield.
I get one from Westport.
Westport.
Yes, I
Yeah.
would say our
Yeah.
biggest
Yeah.
competitor is Westport. And we work together, too, on different things. We go back and forth. And so I would say Westport, and then we have good communication and communicate often to Stanford as well.
The other question is, and I may have missed it in the report, but do you have programs specifically aimed at seniors? And
We do.
Can you
We
tell us a little bit
actually,
about
yes, we accommodated 30 seniors this year. We do a manual count on that. And I would say their offerings usually are in the arts and health and exercise.
not the technology? Which,
Well, we do not offer free classes in technology.
okay.
So you're saying all those senior classes are free?
I would say not all, but there are the majority of classes for seniors they can take with just a $5 fee once a semester. There are certain courses they cannot take because the instructor charges me for them.
Cost.
I can pass along their cost, right, and so that would be no golf or nutrition classes unless they pay the cost. And there are no computer classes. Those are not free. There might be something else, but I can't think off the top of my head. But it is in the catalog in the front. It's in the special important information section.
Does that demographic tend to register for the computer courses so they can communicate with family or?
I would say Wilton and New Canaan. We get a lot of people from New Canaan here because they do not have an adult education program.
Mm-hmm.
I apologize if this question sounds like a loaded question, but are there any resources or facilities needs that we might want to be aware of that we might be able to help you with in the future if we have advanced warning?
I'll tell you, we can use a new kitchen.
Jennifer.
I was going to say, Bruce,
Really? That
Cookies during the day.
We were just talking about that,
Actually,
actually.
at Middlebrook, right?
Yeah,
That would be
because
so
we were
great.
just saying, yeah.
We
They
moved.
suffered.
Yes, I would
That's
say
like
our
the
cooking
cooking program.
programs do not do as well as we would like, and I feel that it is because of the kitchen, the location. We moved a lot of programs outside of the school in terms of the cooking. We held a Friday afternoon cooking class at Trackside, and we actually, they can actually drink 4 ounces of wine with that class. That was popular, and we had a great chef there.
Such a straight
Yeah, that might have been.
As you innovate, you can take 8
Right,
ounces
had
of
nothing
different
to do with the food.
4 ounces is considered healthy.
Right. Okay.
Believe me, we weigh all this out. We had a whole conversation about
Oh,
what
wow.
we would consider healthy, a healthy serving or not.
They were making you sherry. Sherry disappeared.
So, and then we had another popular class is off-site too. It's actually the cheese and wine pairing. And that I actually went to. It was a ton of fun and educational, and it was in a beautiful surrounding. So those seem to be catching on, and we're doing more of those this coming semester with the wine and artisanal chocolates, and we're doing something with another wine shop in town and the Olive Market in Georgetown. That should be nice.
Yeah, and that's local now, because it was in Ridgefield before, and now it's coming to Wilton.
It's another loaded question on the kitchen. Now that I
to
put
the
myself in
kitchen.
it, you'd said one of your goals each year is to be, self-funded.
Yes.
Is there any way that through your organization you may be able to figure out how to help upgrade those kitchens?
Well, I would say that we generally do not make a profit that we can give back. Especially the last couple of years have been very difficult. We hope at this point to break even this year. So I would say we'd have to ride out these rough times for a while because, and I will say this, it's in the report, while the student enrichment is up 40%, the reason why we have been working so diligently in bringing up those extended day programs is because our enrollment has dropped significantly since the economy turned down in 2008. And that does not offset that 40% gain in the enrichment program. And that's why, until we can work ourselves out of this, we can't give back yet.
Yeah, Dolores, I was just going to point that out too. 140 registrations is really strong in this economy for sure, and your 40% growth. And also the adult education seems to be coming back too.
Yes.
So you must be working the formula pretty well in this economy, going from 860 registrations last year to 922 this year. That's fantastic, 7% increase.
Well, I'd like to comment on that. We had a fabulous fall in adult education. I mean, a fabulous fall. It was so encouraging, especially in the technical on the technical side with the computer classes. We did have a lot of adults coming in for computer training to bring their skills up. Unfortunately, we had a lot of people that had lost jobs and needed to revamp their skills. So we're happy to have them. Then, when the winter-spring rolled around, there were so many storms. Well, we had one storm a week since December 26th. That registration begins in January, and classes are supposed to begin the second week in February. It was very discouraging. And what we did was we kept pushing back the start dates of a lot of these classes to accommodate the student. I mean, we really had to work that. It was a ton of work. And across the board, all adult education classes, programs were very discouraged, and it was very tough. I actually had emailed the Zumba instructor and asked her, I said, what do you think about that? I mean, why do you think the enrollment is low, even in your class? You're only 14. And she said to me something that was very true. And she said, I think people are expending all of their energy right now in trying to get through this winter. And I really do think that was the case. So our numbers could have been higher in the adult ed. But in terms of tech, I think the tech side is always heavier in the fall. It's like a back-to-school thing. And then in the winter, spring, it trails off. It regresses back to the mean.
Do you partner at all with the Wilton Library?
No, we
program
don't. We're independent. We do speak, and we do collaborate on the babysitting certification class.
Not to overlap our classes.
Right. I mean, when we do talk about overlap, so, we might say, we're going to offer the babysitting certification class at these dates, just so you know, and they do the same. So in a few classes, we do that. I get the feeling that they like to keep it separate. And I don't know exactly, Dick, now that I'm thinking of it, how that would work in terms of finances, because we don't get a subsidy, and they might get subsidies for different programs. So I don't know. I never explored that. We do the same thing with the Y. We will let them know when we're offering certain classes so that we can complement and not overlap for the community, because we always want to complement. And we do the same thing with Comstock.
But there may be opportunities to provide some programming that would be too expensive for any one entity to support.
We'd be happy to.
And so that the ability to collaborate with them and partner with them certainly has some potential for
I think it's
success.
a great idea. I mean, anytime, especially in this economy, you want to partner. I think it's a very smart thing to partner.
Trackside was very successful. We ran a kids program there last year, and it was great. And Mark Ketley just came in. He was new on board, and it was really great.
Those collaborative efforts, I think, are
and
very positive.
And you do that a lot in the community.
Right. You collaborate with Stuart Flowers.
Right.
And
Cafe Congalulu.
Cafe Congalulu for some cooking classes there.
Yeah,
and it's in there. Trackside is another one.
Oh, Gilbert and Bennett.
Gilbert and Bennett was new this year.
New.
Yes, we gave a small donation to that organization.
And Walter Schock.
Walter Schock. We tried the ballroom dances dancing with Walter Schock.
Are there any requirements for your teachers other than knowing what they're doing? But I'm thinking about the early morning and late afternoon classes. Like, do they have to go through
the fingerprint?
Well, the
fingerprint and that
yes.
sort of thing?
They do background checks.
They do background checks.
Yes. All of the instructors and even their assistants, if they bring someone with them to teach an 8-week program, yes.
Okay. And is that for all the classes or just those?
All student classes.
All student classes.
Yes.
Okay.
Miller Driscoll, Cider Mill, and Middlebrook, and Gary Chadwick. He's been here for 25 years. Yes. For gymnastics.
And are any of your instructors also certified teachers?
I mean, on your side, you have Ginny Foldo for Little Scientists.
She was.
Right. She's a retired school teacher.
Will
teaches
McGregor is retired.
Right. We have one of our instructors in our Kinder Kids program who is a retired school teacher. I can't think of anyone else off the top of my head. In adult education, I don't know of any.
Oh, Sal Gimo.
Oh, Sal
I'm sorry.
Gimo.
What am I saying?
Do we have another teacher?
Sal Gimo is a kindergarten teacher at Miller Driscoll School. Fabulous.
That is a huge program, and he is a fabulous
sports
teacher.
and games, fall, winter, spring. He runs. We run an April vacation camp with him.
Right.
This year, last year, for 3 years now, we've done it. And Karen Brooks, the art teacher.
The art.
Last year we did it with Karen.
Now, what we say to Sal is this: because our cooking programs are not doing well, we always say to Sal, if you can only cook.
Cook, exactly. That's so true. He's like, Emily, do I look like I can cook healthy snacks?
You ought to have him do a comedy class. He was the MC for the Are You Smarter?
Yes, oh really?
He was fabulous.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet. He is fabulous.
And he comes back in our child care program the last 3 days of school, the shortened days. He comes and does a field day with all the kids. Cider Mill comes down to Miller Driscoll and runs a field day.
Right.
Any other questions?
I just want to say this, too. The last thing is about our child care. I know we talked about introducing technology. I want you to be aware that that we're looking specifically about at that cider mill program. Our competition, the Y, and Y in particular, they received a donation this year of 25 laptops. And so the reason the issue of computers came up is because parents have called us. And while they may not get a lot of homework on the computer, it's another way to regain that market back. And I think that's another reason we lost some of that share, because we did not have anything like that in place. It wasn't really asked for, but this year we do see the need. And we've already spoken with the administration at Cider Mill, and they've been great, and Matt Hepfer has some ideas as well to help bring us along. We really have to remain competitive.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dolores. Thank you, Emily. And we'll move on to the financial report. We can.
Good evening. I'll give you the highlights of my April financial report and then take any questions you have. As of the end of April, I'm projecting a budget surplus of $320,564. This is little changed from my last report. Projected savings in the salaries and health benefits, again, more than offset the overage in special education, outplacements, and contracted services. This month, we're also projecting savings of $100,000 in heating oil and $50,000 in staff training. The projected special education budget deficit is $545,640. This is due to overages of $264,509 in contracted services and $422,516 in the outplacement account, partially offset by the health benefit savings. Contracted service costs are over budget due to an unanticipated increase in the number of independent evaluations that the district is required to pay for, and outplacements exceed budget due to the fact that we've had 3 more students outplaced than we had budgeted. One other note about the contract services, even though they are running over budget this year, it's actually lower than our actual level from last year. So we budgeted a decrease, but just haven't realized as much of a decrease as we had hoped for. As I reported last month, we filed our updated excess cost claim for $1.4 million in March. And again, the last information I have from the state is that we will receive 77% of that, which is approximately $1,085,000. After the board, the town credits the board to the extent of the special education deficit, we end up with a net surplus of $866,204. In health benefits, for the year to date, we're under budget by $1,890,926. And as you can see on the report, April was the first month since last July that the health benefits exceeded the budget. Claims appear to have returned to a normal level in May. And knowing that the claims can rise unexpectedly as they did in April, we're still projecting the year-end surplus of $750,000 in this category, but obviously hope to end the year with a larger surplus. And I'll take any questions you have.
And the reduced heating oil usage?
Yes.
Is that attributable to any one particular factor, or it seemed to me that it was on the average, it was probably a fairly normal winter.
We used less oil than we had budgeted, and I've actually track it every year, and we've been just gradually going down a little bit every year. So we had budgeted based on the average of the prior 5 years, and
so
we came in lower.
Okay. And is the bulk of that attributable to the replacement burner at the high school?
A significant amount of it is, yes. How much exactly, I don't have with me.
On the independent evaluations,
Yeah.
Is that, we had to go outside for the independent evaluations because our own staff was unable to do the number that had to be done?
No. In a PPT, if the parent is either dissatisfied with the evaluations we've done or wants another opinion, they have the right to request an independent evaluation, an independent educational evaluation, and we are required to pay for that. And we've seen more of those than we anticipated this year.
Does that generally happen after a child has gone into the program or to get into the program?
It can be at any stage.
Which one is giving us the overage?
Primarily around the eligibility.
The eligibility, yeah. And there's nothing we can do about that because they have the right to go outside.
They have the right to request it.
Mm-hmm.
And healthcare costs for May look to be tracking on
So far.
on budget.
Yeah. April really, and I don't know the exact reason for it, it was really 1 to 2 weeks in the month of April where it was a lot larger. So I don't know if there was one case that finally got paid at once, or they got behind and got caught up. I don't know, but May has returned to a good calm level so far.
Any other questions? Good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And now we'll turn it over to we'll move on to the school calendar.
Right, thank you. Tonight I'd like to just, before the board discusses this, share some thoughts and some information about the work and some of the issues related to developing a school calendar for 2012-2013. Very quickly, some of the variables that we deal with every year in putting together a calendar are making sure that we comply with the number. It's a minimum in the state of 180 instructional days. We have 181. There is no flexibility on this, and we saw that last year with in the spring with the tornado and the damage that was done in many Fairfield counties, and they had asked for some sort of waiver from the state, and there was none forthcoming on the number of days. So it's a very tight variable we deal with. Providing for the state mandated holidays, it's set forth in statute. Our contractual provisions for staff development, parent conferences. Trying to, the assumption that we're going to lose some days, and we certainly had our share this year due to inclement weather. Another factor that we deal with is the timing of major holidays in a given year. When does Labor Day fall? When does Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, the Christmas, New Year holiday, Good Friday, and so on. So these play into it. Another variable is the need to try and avoid the fourth week of June as we get into conflicts. The deeper we go into June with increasing numbers of college orientations and summer graduate programs and other things that are compounding variables. So basically, those are variables we deal with each year. In this year, in looking at the 2012-13 calendar, I think two issues have surfaced. One is kind of a continuing conversation about whether or not a March vacation is feasible, and a second is I think a very legitimate concern that was raised about whether, and it's one that's kind of not a new question, but whether you need to have 2 full week vacation periods in the second semester, and could you have, one kind of a long weekend and one one with a week's vacation. So those are a couple of the issues that we're dealing with. With respect to the March vacation issue, I shared some thoughts, and just quickly that I'll go through some of the administration's thinking about that. One thing I thought might be helpful was we put together kind of a graphic way of looking at this that I think presents some of the challenges that we face with the March vacation idea, with the idea of a March vacation, because as you know, for 3 or 4 years we had, 5 years I guess, we had a system in Wilton where we had a long weekend in February around President's Day, then a March break, and then a long weekend around the Easter Good Friday time. And the state changed the testing and put all of the testing, unilaterally put all the testing into March. The diagram that you have before you, or the chart you have before you, shows at the top you can see kind of the testing window. These were the number of days where we were involved in testing or in makeup testing during the month of March. That's in yellow, so you can see the by date. The gray, you see the number of absences that these are test dates when we were doing the scheduled testing, and the number of youngsters who were absent on given days. And then the blue to the right hand are the numbers of makeup tests that we were given, that had been scheduled to make up for the times that kids were absent during the gray testing periods. Again, there's a requirement that there's a minimum of 95% of the kids must be tested. It's a federal guideline. Our thinking, and we talked a little bit about this last year, is that we view it as trying to get closer to 100%, because it is a data point, is one of many data points, but it is an important data point that we use, and so we feel it was important. So you can see that one of the challenge, and then from the 21st on is the spring sports season, and that affects the high school kids. The competitions begin because of weather problems and so on in very early April, and so that period from about the 21st through the 31st is practice by our spring sports teams. And I think we have about 600 or thereabout students that are involved in athletics at the high school level. In past years, when we had the March break, it was generally around about the 10th or 11th to about St. Patrick's Day. It was in that time window, and as you can see, that's one of the challenges we're facing, is that's still in either testing window or in the makeup period. Part of another difficulty that we face, and we didn't experience it as much this year, that we have to consider in thinking about March, is it's the unpredictability of the weather. This year, as you know, January was mentioned earlier, was the month that we got hammered in, and March, I think we had one delayed opening. But we've also had other years in March where we've had delays, closings, and it has played havoc because it pushes everything out, pushes the tests out. So the predictability of the weather is a variable that we deal with. Just in terms of discussion, I think one of the challenges, or one of the concerns that we have about the calendar on this, because I would dearly love to be able to say, gee, a March vacation, would work great. Wilton was one of the few districts in the state, by the way, we did it when they did it. And I don't really care when we have vacations, but I think and I don't think the administrators care. It's the dynamic of the instructional program, and trying to provide an environment for kids where they are able to take the tests in an environment which will promote success. These are high-stakes tests in some people's minds, and we want our kids are well prepared, but it also is a very complex set of logistics to giving these tests. As I mentioned in the memo, the state, there are a lot of kids who are taken off-site and tested separately, kids who have IEPs or 504 plans, or English language learners. There are accommodations for these youngsters, and doing makeup tests is very complex, because we also tests must be administered by fully certified teachers, And when you go outside of a regular testing window where you have the whole staff on duty for testing, finding space and proctors, more importantly, who have other assignments, is a challenge. So I think that we've looked very carefully at the instructional program part of this. I don't think, and I know it's a hot button for some. I don't think that the convenience of vacation and the frequent flyer, the blackout periods, should be a driver in the school calendar. Again, we did it at a time when it was beneficial to parents, and that was a side benefit to that. But I think the instructional program piece is, from our perspective, the most important driver of this. So those are some of the thoughts about March. I think a legitimate question was raised at the board table last year about the idea of, do we need to have 2 full weeks? And I think several board members here talked about the idea that depending on the weather, and certainly was the case this year, you can end up with a disjointed school experience. Certainly January, where we had, as you know, some days where we had an early dismissal, a closure, and a delayed opening back to back to back. And that really plays havoc with that. You also have in January, depending on the timing of the vacation, the Christmas winter break, when New Year's is and so on, you have Martin Luther King Day, so you have the opportunity for a 3-day weekend. And then in February, you have President's Day. So some people have argued that you don't need to have a full week break in February because you've had these other opportunities in January and a weekend in February. So one of the options that we did prepare for the board did have the idea of a long weekend in February around President's Day, and then the April break. One of the challenges, conversely, about having a February break, and again, you can find people on any side of this argument, of having a February break and doing the long weekend in April, is it's really quite a long push to the end. I've done that in some districts, and it really, when you're looking at a 55-day run without any break, is quite challenging. So those were some of the options that we dealt with. One of the questions I think that was asked at the table last year about this, when you look back at this chart, was when we completed, that when we hit the 95% point, even though we said 100% is what we're striving for. And in just looking at this, the cider mill we didn't hit till about the 23rd at Cider Mill, and then you at Middlebrook it was after the 24th where you were, and then at the high school it was really the 28th. So that, because if you have, with a population of 300 kids, about 16, 17, it represents about 5% of your student body, and so that's how we try to look at that. So that's we've tried to be responsive to some of the concerns that were raised at the table, and we have given you the some optional calendars to look at. Again, our sense was that the 2-week break is still preferable. You saw one of the pieces, one of the attachments that we provided, saw the calendars that for each district in the state. One of the things about having the February break, and again, there are good arguments on either side of whether you need a week in February, but it does, and depending on the winter, sometimes allow you to dodge the bullet on some snow days, and I don't care if we're on break in February, whether it's snowing, and there have been some years where you look out the window and you said that would have been a closer today or 2 closers that week. Some years it works that way, other years it's not a variable.
I
what
think
it is.
another advantage to the week in February is sometimes it breaks an illness cycle.
Yeah. So that's basically what we've tried to do to look at this. This is on for a first read tonight and for your discussion.
And for the two alternatives, the start dates for the students are the same, and it's just a matter of, at least for the two alternatives, whether we go for a full week in February
Right.
or a long weekend, and then that just, depending on which one, it will end on the 14th of June or the 11th, so there's a
Right.
difference of 4 days.
You put a lot of time into this.
Tried to look at the various.
For those of you who can't see, it's a 16-page report that he gave us. Evaluating. 17. If you feel comfortable, I'd love to see this on the website so people can see what you're wrestling with and understand more of what the challenge is. I'd like to see if there couldn't possibly be an evaluation of a draft C, taking your A and B and shifting it around a little bit.
I did. I'm sorry, I did.
Uh-oh.
Do it.
18.
18.
What I was thinking, just kind of chewing with some of the issues that you were talking about and looking at your draft B, if you went with a full week in February and then just eliminated April, added 1 day in March 28th, that would make a 4-day weekend in March, and then 1 day in May 24th, that would make a 4-day weekend around Memorial Day. And you need to make up one more day, but right now in draft B, you're closing on June 11th. You could make it June 12th and comfortably still fit the year. And it might be a nice compromise.
Another possibility is to take the February 4th Professional Development Day and on drafts.
That was a recommendation. I'm sorry for interrupting. That was a recommendation of one of our star Cider Mill students.
A Super Bowl.
That's the day after Super Bowl. I got to deliver on that. No, I'm kidding.
I forgot about that. My apologies, but I was thinking moving it to February 19th and making that a 5-day weekend.
Right. There are,
Yeah, that would be another one.
So can you? I'm sorry, Bruce. Can you?
Sure.
So that your suggestion would be to
Eliminate the April vacation.
Okay, so it's no April.
So that
Okay.
gives you 5 days. I'm working off of draft B.
Right.
Gives you 5 days to work with.
Right.
You put 4 of them on February 19th, 20th, 21st, and 22nd. So that gives you a nice long February break. You then put a day at March 28th. I mean, you can make it April 1st for all I care, but
I think April 1st would be more appreciated
okay.
Yeah.
because people travel on Easter.
Okay.
So
We've heard
the
the
20.
complaint.
So the 29th first, kind of thing,
Yeah,
March
yeah.
29.
Right. So it's 4 days.
Behavior on that day.
Yeah.
Tim likes that.
And not to mention that you still can do testing in March. So
Exactly.
It's much
yeah.
better.
Yeah, I understand your testing.
Yeah.
My concern
And then I
about-
want to add one more to it, which is Friday, May
And then the Memorial.
24th, which would make Memorial Day a 4-day weekend.
Tim, does that have any impact on proms?
Historically, no. This year, yes, we ran into a situation with SAT. We had to move the junior prom, which is scheduled for tomorrow night. But typically, we would avoid a holiday weekend for our prom.
Okay. So that might work. You
Okay.
need one more day.
Right, just go 1 day later in June.
Yeah, June 12th.
And then,
I like
And you
that.
still have 2.
I would vote for that.
yeah, it does
Just
get,
no days
it has
before you have to go lower.
attractive.
Yeah, exactly.
So in
Well, the long
April,
weekend thing's a nice thing.
so
I might do a jig if we could pull this off.
Oh,
So
that's an
the-
incentive not to.
the marches of, you got a 4-day, then the end of
You
end
get
of
it.
March and
Yeah, 4-day at the end of March and then 4-day at the end of May.
Now, from a parent's perspective, if you sit back and look at what you just proposed, is this calendar too chopped up? Because I start out looking at August, we go 4 days, we have a day off, we go 4 days, we go a week, we have another day off, we go a couple days, we have a day off.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
looking at it. I tried to add it to 3-day weekends. So
That
then
already
it's a 4-day.
existed.
That already existed. So then it makes it a 4-day. you can do some things in 4 days. Or if you're thinking about doing something on a 3-day weekend, you're probably pulling your kid early on Friday anyway. So we kind of address that.
The May 24th one, and also the March. I don't know whether that's by May 24th. Tim, are you still? We're playoffs, or what's that? But that would be.
It's essentially tomorrow.
Right.
Well, you would have any Wilton High School athletic team involved in state tournament action and or SEAC action could still be participating active, but only at the varsity level.
Right.
Typically, freshman and JV programs
Are
are done
done.
by this week.
Right.
The March 29th, you also have the same.
The only other impact I can think of is the expectation that our musicians participate in the Memorial Day Parade, so our music program's impacted.
Right.
If people go out of town that weekend.
Well, my understanding is there's an expectation. I don't know. I need to be somewhat careful about this. I don't want to overspeak on the issue, but I do think there's an expectation that our marching band participate in the Memorial Day Parade.
There is.
But
In Middlebrook as well, right? Yeah.
if you've given them Friday off, you could conceivably, as a family, do something Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and be back for
On
that
Monday.
parade, avoiding traffic, etc.
Right.
I like it. I would definitely make that long weekend at the end of March, though, by having April 1st off and not March 28th.
To Tim's point, it might help.
Again, you have all athletes that are affected by, well, not
Yeah.
Good Friday because they don't.
That's a legal
The other
holiday.
advantage of it, April 1st is, I don't know what the testing window is for next year, but if it indeed March 28th is included in the window,
Right.
it would be a useful makeup day.
Right.
You can particularly see at the high school level how we sometimes have to work very hard to get our students in at the end of the game to get them to follow through on expectations.
You know.
Right. So just do it.
What
with
about
the
the
Monday
parents
off
who
and
take,
that-
who are really looking for that full weekend in April? It's
Well,
hard to say.
I have a question. What purpose
2
would
weeks
this
ago.
serve? I mean, we're changing something again. I mean, we got rid of March. Obviously, we had a dissertation on what March isn't going to work. So, I mean, February and April, as far as consistency goes, is what everybody's expecting. If we're going to change something again, what purpose is it going to serve?
Well, it tries to reach a compromise for what Gary's looking for in testing, for what some families are looking for in some opportunity to get away in some portion of March, whether it's a student-athlete family or not. It addresses the issue of needing to have some breakup for rest periods. It still gives people something in May, and also provides sufficient extended periods of education through there as well. This year was a tough year with those 2 full weeks. I mean, I literally had high school kids, I won't name them because they'll probably get yelled at, coming up to me saying, we don't need this break at this point. And that would have been a good opportunity to continue teaching. So it's a work towards a compromise.
I don't see it adding any value, to be honest with you.
I
I think
think
the
the-
discussion is March versus 2 breaks.
To me, I agree with you.
I think yours falls down when you say that the March 4-day weekend gives people an opportunity to get out of town because it falls over a holiday weekend, a religious holiday weekend, which tends to be very family-oriented
Family-oriented, yeah.
anyway, where people are not vacationing.
And the March deal is
I
this.
guess I don't agree with that, because when I look at my family, they use that time.
But the March deal is this. There were 3 benefits to it. Number one, no one else had March. Frequent Flyer had a little thing to do with it, but it's $2,000 to fly to Vail
Oh, yeah.
those 2 weeks, and it's $500 the rest of the year. So there's an economic thing about getting out. The other thing is, if you have any kids in private school or college or something like that, it's much more natural that they're going to have that break in mid-March. So it does bring the family together again.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, but I also think what happens, colleges are all along the waterfront too. And there's
I'm beyond
not-
that. I'm beyond that.
You know,
It seems to me that a March vacation has to be off the table.
It is.
Well, no, it is.
It
I
is.
don't think there's
It
any
is.
question about it.
I
You
think
know.
so.
I think it's just whether we want to have a series of 4-day weekends, or whether we have just a full week in February and one in April.
I just think we'd get a maelstrom from the parents. I think trying to switch
Would it be
sides.
an
I think
interesting-
changing it.
Would it be an interesting opportunity to put a Survey Monkeys questionnaire out there, ask people their opinions? Technology, sir.
Right.
Just open it up for a week, see what they say. Be interesting to get feedback. We can do whatever we want with the feedback, but it'd be interesting to get it.
I think what you get, which may be okay, what you get is the people who have the most interest in a particular pattern that might fit for next year, and then the following year might not. So I
Might be the case,
you know,
but it would also show the town that we recognize how stressful the calendar can be. We took some input. This is what the input looks like, and this is what we're going to do based on the input. Something to think about.
and my sense is that this has been around this issue for a long time. This one is not going to make anybody or everybody happy. You're going to have differences from year to year, differences among families. The question is what makes most educational sense. And to me, I don't know that we're accomplishing a lot by adding a couple of long weekends at the expense of the February vacation.
Well, I think we have 3 alternatives.
Yeah.
And we don't have to make a decision this evening. We can. This is something you can work
Gil, I was
consider
going to
on.
move. Wait, Gil. I was
okay.
going to
Sorry.
move that the board accepts A tonight. That was when I walked into this table.
A or okay, that was the.
That's the February.
That's what Gary's recommending, right?
Yeah.
Right, he's recommending A. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Motion on the floor.
Motion's on the table. Is there
I'll second it.
discussion? Oh,
It's not posted as an action. That's my,
Okay.
I'm a little, I appreciate that. I'm a
So
little-
move it to the consent.
And I'd say I think we need to talk about it more. And it'd be nice to get some additional input.
Well, we have a.
I'm not averse to that.
Mhm.
I'm not averse to it. I just think that every year we kill so many friggin' cycles. Excuse my French. And an 18-page report. I don't want to be sitting at this table next year with a 24-page report. To be honest with you.
Okay.
And that's not to belittle Gary's report because he shared information that I hadn't seen before. When I looked at this and I saw that every other school system does February and April, I said,
Done. Easy.
And the one that doesn't, we don't like all their examples.
well, I wasn't going to go there.
I thought this was remarkably informative. and helpful.
Great.
I'm sorry.
That's great.
And I
That's the way I feel.
Can I just ask a question from a testing point of view? If you have a full week of vacation in February versus a long weekend, does that full weekend interrupt the rhythm? Does it take longer for the kids to get back after that vacation to be ready to settle down to test?
I think that is a factor. Yeah, that's a very insightful question. I think that there is there has been some conversation about that from the principals and Julia.
But if you have a long weekend in February, parents take children out earlier and bring them back later.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's almost easier to do a week. So everyone's gone, everyone comes back refreshed. You hope that they're back refreshed and renewed and ready to test. But the long weekend is extended.
It's a plus-minus type argument that I would lean towards the benefits of having a week to rejuvenate and refresh. There's no evidence that suggests that you're going to find improved health coming out of that week. But to come back after the week off, and then our approach has always been to use the following week to ramp up and get ready, and it's worked.
The week after the month of testing.
No,
No,
the weekend after
Oh, the
February
February,
vacation.
okay.
Before
That's
the
the
testing.
way the high school
Yeah.
can operate. Because you'll notice on the work that Gary gave that Cider Mill, for example, had more testing days, and they have to begin the process in that week. I can't speak for Jamie, but there is some nuances between the buildings in terms of the number of days, the way you organize, and so on and so forth. But
So the fact that parents will take children out for a longer period of time would negate any, if it were short weekend, would negate any advantage that you would get by having an extra
Right.
couple days of school.
People will
Right.
take the
Yeah.
4-day,
Okay.
as Jim
We-
said, I think they go, just.
We've had
Yeah, we-
people come before the board to tell us that. We've had teachers that came and begged
Yeah.
a couple of years ago to please make it a real vacation because otherwise it's make your own and people.
Yeah, okay, I'm convinced.
Mhm.
Which means if we give them additional days off, you really compromise. I mean, you meet the calendar, but individual kids may not all meet it because their parents are taking them out.
Well, if you give a series of long weekends, you give more opportunities for children to be out of school on
Extra,
scheduled days.
another Tuesday, let's make it longer. You know.
Okay, well, we do have
Filthy lot, those
a motion on the table, and we're able to, do we need to move this in the agenda to an action item?
I think Bruce wants to discuss it more.
Well, that's what do you want to withdraw your motion then, just? For,
I'd like to see if we,
To next week.
if we can
Mhm.
put a question out there. I mean, I think it's worth getting.
So are we looking at 3 options then? Are we looking at the A, B, and then
You'll provide the C, right? Or the
C
D.
option?
just, just dinner.
Just
No, but the C is really the.
Your
Is your
Yeah,
proposal?
whatever.
Yeah.
proposal.
I think it has
And
some,
make it absolutely shot down. And you know what? That's great. It tells us that we got information.
well, I think it's worthwhile
We'll
just
give it 2 weeks.
to test it, yeah.
I
We'll give it 2
agree.
weeks.
Mhm.
I agree. Why
Okay,
not?
so let's
What
start
do
the
we
mat
lose?
and, see if we can do it, and then we'll come back and
I think it'd be awesome.
discuss again next week. That may be a pattern
2
for the
weeks.
future. Mhm.
No problem.
If nothing else, it'll be interesting to see the extent to which people care
Respond.
enough to fill out a survey.
Right.
I think, why not?
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, so there are no action items, so we'll move on to the timeline. And the next meeting on the 9th, we'll have, again, the meeting at 6 o'clock. We'll have an executive session, and I will send out the document probably this weekend or something, so there'll be plenty of time to fill it out. And I don't think we'll need any extra time, so we'll have an executive session, and then, let me see here.
We have, one of the special things on the 9th is
yes.
the recognition of the retirees. So we will have write-ups in the for the board members to honor those who are retiring.
Can we, as I've asked before, is there any way we can do that
Get
at the
those.
beginning?
Just at the beginning?
Well, we'll do it just after the, I think we'll do it just after the consent agenda.
Yeah, just so we can get
But
it
before
rolling.
we get into the other items. Otherwise, it's not part of the Board of Ed session. So we'll do it right before we do reports and recognition. Okay, and then updated strategic plan?
Right.
Okay,
And school's swimming in, and
Right.
that will be a good night.
okay. And also, the enrollment report wasn't part of, was that to be included in the
Packet?
in the packet?
It was in-
No, it was just,
The May 1st?
We only had-
Information item.
oh, we just had this, but there was no,
We did not get,
we didn't
Yeah,
get
there's
the,
no
we didn't get the report.
sorry, I will send it to
Okay,
you.
just have to send
It's
that
just
out.
information item.
Right. Okay. At this point, we ask the public if anyone would wish to come and comment. Seeing no one, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Adjourned.
Oh, here.
Mhm.